I hated going to school. It wasn't that I hated learning. I loved to read and study. I just hated going to a predominantly black school. For someone like me who loves learning, going to a mostly black school was frustrating. I was not challenged there academically. It seemed like all the students had this complex that they were going to fail, and it was all the fault of white America. I found it disheartening that even in grade school their mindset was already on failure. I was a pariah in my school for many reasons. Only among the ignorant do you find skin tone a hindrance or the main topic of a social hierarchy. Me being one of the smartest kids in the school did not help me at all. The dumber, predominantly black kids attributed my academic success to the fact that I was half white. It didn't matter to them that I worked and studied very hard. Instead of going to the mall or parties, I enjoyed reading books. I wanted to get out of the dump called the hood. I wanted to be far away from these violent and ignorant people. My mother was white. She passed away early in my life, so it has just been me and my father. I love my father more than anything in this world. He is a dark-skinned black man. He was not like the knuckle-dragging Neanderthal that permeates most places known as the hood. He was a professor at a local college. He did not make much, so we were forced to live among the willfully ignorant. Among the ignorant, you would see violence daily. My father was considered a coon or Uncle Tom because he was educated and did not act or think the same way as everyone else. I took on my father's love for education and his overt mannerisms. But of course, I was not berated for that. Had I been dark-skinned like my father, I would have experienced the hate that he did. Black people in the hood do not like nor embrace differences in thought. If you were educated, they marked you as trying to be white. It's sad that wanting more than living in poverty and ignorance made you an outcast and subject to violence among your own people. I had something that was more of an insult to black people than just education. I was half white. My skin tone was a light honey brown. My features were not as broad, and my hair was long and curly. I was everything they wanted to be, but they knew they could never be. Despite their vocal hate for whiteness, they longed to be near it. And they envied those who were obviously black, but were much closer to whiteness than they were. As I said earlier, only ignorant fools put so much stock in pigmentation. It never occurred to me to want to be anything else than what I was. I was a biracial girl who was hated by the black community because of my racial mix. But of course, one would never label black people racist for racially oppressing people for their skin tone or race. Black people have fought for and will continue to fight to be the perpetual world victims. After school, I would have a long 2-mile walk to my house. My father, as poor as he was, owned his home. He inherited it from his father. My grandfather was horrible with money. By the time he passed away, the bank was preparing to take the house. My father worked hard to get caught up on the back payments and eventually pay the house off. My father was one of the few black men to own anything. He took great pride in his old house. He maintained it as best he could. He saved money to get a new roof and upgrade things. His dream was to pass this house on to me. He would always look at me and say, "Monica, I want you to have a head start in this world. This home is not much, but one day it will be yours." I had something that so many black families in my neighborhood would never have. I had property. I lived in a house with a yard, while they lived in roach-infested projects. Of course, this only made them hate me more. They assumed that because I was half white was why I lived in a house instead of a tiny project apartment like them. It never once crossed their minds that my dark-skinned black father worked his ass off to get an education, just to get something better for himself and me. Everything was the fault of white people and whiteness to them. I hated being around black people, not because they were black, but because of the cultural mentality that seemed to infest them at an early age. My father was not like them. I guess education canceled out the victim mentality of the ignorant. Walking that 2-mile trek home used to be a peaceful thing for me. It was a way for me to deal with the frustration of dealing with the sexual drooling and advances of black boys and men who lusted after my light skin and features. It was a way for me to process the hate I received from black women and girls. "There that white girl go," I heard a voice shout. My heart started to race. I knew what was going to happen. A car revved up behind me. I thought of running, but I knew I could not outrun a car. I tried to still my beating heart and act as tough as I could. To me, these black girls were like rabid animals. They only respected strength. If they smelt fear, they would pounce on you. "Look at this white bitch walking like she's better than us," a black girl shouted from the car. There were several black girls and women in the vehicle. Some I recognized and others I did not. Some looked like adults. I would not be surprised if it was their mothers with them. All black women seemed to hate us biracial women. No matter what I did, my very existence was a constant reminder that they were black and could never be me. I did not respond to them. I just kept walking. I hoped they would say what they had to say and keep driving. But then again, I was not dealing with normal human beings. These were rabid black girls who blamed all of their issues on whiteness. I heard a door slam behind me. I turned to see several of the black girls get out. I was debating if I should run or not. One of the girls looked like she was pregnant. She was not much older than me. What would possess a pregnant girl to get into a physical confrontation willingly was beyond me. I decided to face them. I was no coward. My dad had taught me how to throw a punch. I felt like I had a leg up. Most, if not all, of these black girls that were quickly closing the distance between their car and me probably didn't know their father's name. "I didn't know white bitches lived in our neighborhood," one of the black girls said. I knew this would end in a fight. The girl talking was the leader of their pack of wild animals. I dropped my backpack. I figured if I could drop her, the others would leave me alone. I faced her and put my hands up like my father taught me. "The white bitch wants to fight," one of the black girls mocked. I studied the 5 black girls before hoping to figure out who the others followed. None of them stepped forward to fight. They all nudged each other, hoping one of them would step forward. I smirked at them. "Just as I thought, a bunch of cowardly ghetto bitches," I said. I picked up my backpack and turned to continue home. Before I could start walking, one of the girls screamed in rage behind me. I felt my hair being pulled. My scalp stung, and my eyes started to water. "Let go of me!" I screamed. I tried to turn around, but the girl would yank my hair harder and keep out of my reach. "Get her!" the black girl pulling my hair shouted. The other girls pounced on me. I felt fists and feet hit me all over. The wind was knocked out of me, and I fell to my knees. I could feel blood on my face. My head hurt really bad. "Hold this bitch down," an older black woman said. "Okay, mama," the girl pulling my hair replied. I was thrown to the dirty, cracked concrete sidewalk. My face was on the hot pavement. The sidewalk was stained with God only knows what, like everything else in the hood. The sidewalks were dirty and broken. I felt a heavy pressure on my back. My breathing was ragged. Someone held my legs and my arms. I wanted to scream, but there was so much pressure on my back that I could barely breathe. "My daughter's been telling me about you. You think because you're half white, that makes you better than everyone else," the older black woman said. I tried to shake my head to indicate that I didn't feel that way, but it was pointless. If I tried to move, my head hurt worse. I felt like I was going to pass out. "Just so you don't get confused and think you're not black like the rest of us, I'm going to cut off that nice long curly hair of yours," the older black woman said. The black girls laughed as the older woman pulled a pocket knife from her purse. "Pull her hair tightly," the older black woman ordered. I wanted to scream so badly. They pressed my face firmly against the dirty, cracked pavement and pulled my hair hard. I couldn't help but cry. I hated the fact that I cried in front of them. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing they had hurt me, but it was too late for that now. The tears flowed freely. I could feel the dull blade of her pocket knife sawing at my hair. Like a frayed rope slowly breaking, my hair was cut. She yanked hard and held up a fistful of my hair. The younger girls howled and jeered at me in victory. They looked like savages celebrating a fresh kill. "You're no better than us, little yellow bitch," the older black woman said. She shoved her fistful of my long curly hair in front of my face that was still pressed firmly against the pavement. I screamed as loud as I could. My head throbbed, and my eyes felt like they were going to pop out of my head. I don't know why they were so thrilled to harm me like this. There was a terrifying look of satisfaction in their eyes, as if every fiber of their being rejoiced at seeing a half-breed suffer. "Knock that yellow bitch out," the older black woman growled. She held the fistful of my curly hair to her thick nappy head, admiring it. She seemed lost for a moment, as if she saw herself with my hair. It dawned on me as I felt the first fist and kicks of the black girls hit me. Their hate for me had nothing to do with me. They hated me because they hated themselves. I started to black out. I smiled as I felt a cool darkness come from me. They will always be miserable and stuck in the skin and body they hate. Because of that self-hate, I will be better than them. "Stop smiling, mutt," one of the girls shouted as she kicked me hard in my face. I blacked out, bloody and beaten, but victorious. Monica tenderly touched her face as she stared at the huge red welt on her cheek. The pavement was hot when those black girls pushed her face down on it. Monica sighed deeply and let the tears fall freely down her honey-brown cheeks. These were not tears of pain. They were tears of frustration. She had felt helpless as they held her down and cut out chunks of her long, curly hair. "I fucking hate them," Monica growled. She slammed her fist hard on the bathroom counter. She was going to have to wear a hat until her hair grew back. Monica sighed as she saw the huge bald spots on her. "Those fucking animals," Monica said. She remembered the look of elation in their eyes as they held her hair. It was like a trophy or a prize to them. Some held it up to their heads, wondering how my long curly biracial hair would look on their disgusting black heads. I was going to do bad things to them. I knew I could not let this slide. I just wanted to live my life and move the hell out of the hood. I wanted to do so many things, but the hood and the ignorant, knuckle-dragging cave dwellers that infested it would always hold me back. It's hard to focus and succeed when you always have to look over your shoulder. When you can't even breathe because black people felt some type of way about me being half white. I had come to the conclusion that I would never be black enough for them, nor did I care to be. I came from a white womb. I was half white, yet I was not white, nor was I black. I was something in between, a mixture of both, yet not either of them. I sighed again as I pulled the thick beanie over my head. I had so many bald patches where they cut out my hair that I could not hide it outside of wearing this beanie. It was a hot day, and I knew I would look foolish wearing it. But it would be less foolish than bold and blatant bald patches. I wanted to hurt those black girls badly. I didn't know what I could inflict on them that was equal to what they had done to me. They took my pride and dignity. They beat me because they did not like my race. They were my oppressors. But of course no one would see it that way. I was half black, so therefore considered just black. No matter what black people do to me because of my racial mixture or in the name of colorism, it would never be seen as racism. It was just black on black bullying. Something had to be done about this. I knew I was not the only biracial girl who has endured this from these jealous black bitches. Beating them up one by one would do nothing. All they knew was violence. They would walk it off and come back at me later. I had to do something that would make them feel the lasting pain that they made me feel. Then it hit me. I remembered one of the girls was pregnant. I smiled coldly into the mirror. My reflection chilled me. I did not recognize the cold, bitter mixed girl that smiled back at me. But something had to be done. A statement had to be made. I would take her child from her. I would consider it a blessing for that child and the world. Who would want to be raised by a single black bitch in the hood? If the child was a boy, it would grow up to terrorize someone or rape a mixed girl. I knew all too well the lust and aggressive advances that black men and boys had for girls who looked like me. Yeah, I would be doing the world a favor. That bitch who attacked me would forever remember the pain and trauma she inflicted on me. My pain would be attached to her loss. I sighed and splashed water on my face. I was going to do this today. I would get her alone and kill her child. I walked out of the bathroom and ate a quick breakfast. My father had already left for work. I didn't see him much during the week. He worked hard to make sure I had everything I ever needed. My father was a blessing in my life. He was the reason I didn't hate the entire black race. He was proof to me that there could be good, hard-working, regular black men. He was honorable. I knew he was lonely, and he struggled a lot to provide for me. He sacrificed his dating life to focus on me. I could never repay my father for all he has done for me. All I could do is be better than the trash we lived around. I left my house and started to trek to school. It was quiet in the morning. Most were still in bed because they did not work. They lived off welfare, off of hard-working men like my father. The ghetto should be kissing the feet of the rest of society that supported them. But no, they murder each other and leave their little slice of society in a shambled ruin. I arrived at my school sooner than I thought. I don't even remember walking the miles to get there. I was so lost in my mind and what I would do today. I get like that sometimes. I live in my mind and time just seems to escape. My school was as run down as the ghetto that surrounded it. It was no small wonder that the education we received here was far below that of a middle-class neighborhood. Our textbooks were far outdated. Schools are funded by property tax of the neighborhood. The ghetto was mostly projects and condemned houses. There was no wealth here and no opportunity to grow wealth. It was no small wonder why education was mocked by the black folks who lived there. People like myself who loved education were not challenged. The education was too easy for us. It set us up to fail. The best and brightest of us in the hood were only average in a normally funded school. It's disgusting how bad the education in poor project areas are. I skipped all of my classes and followed that black pregnant bitch around. She was pretty, and boys seemed to drool over her. I mean, what boy wouldn't? She was their same age and clearly sexually active. She was a teenager and pregnant. Boys were driven by their hormones. It took the entire school day to finally find her alone in the girls' bathroom. She was pregnant after all. The bathroom was a place she frequented. I went in behind her and locked the door after looking around to ensure no one was in there. She was in the last stall. My heart began to race in my chest. I was actually going to do this. I was going to make one of them suffer the way they made me suffer. I took off the beanie that covered my head and hid all of my bald spots. Flashes of the black girls holding me down while the older black woman cut out chunks of my hair. I touched the burned and bruised parts of my face. I could feel the rage bubbling inside of me. I remembered this pregnant bitch standing by and laughing at my torture and misery. Silent tears of rage fell down my honey brown cheeks. I slowly walked to the stall the pregnant black bitch was in. I knocked on it. "I'm almost done," I heard her say. I smiled and pushed the stall door open. "What the fuck, bitch?" the girl shouted. She looked up at me. I was amused by how her face changed from anger to terror. She was sitting on the toilet still. Her huge pregnant belly was all the more apparent. She looked at my bruised and burnt face, and then at the massive bald patches on my head. I'm sorry," she said. She knew something was going to happen to her. She could not defend herself against me. "Are you afraid of the white bitch you beat and stole her hair?" I mocked. "Please." "That was them," the pregnant girl responded. She was right. She didn't touch me, but she stood there and laughed as they beat me. She egged them on as they cut out my hair. She mocked me as my face burned against the hot pavement. Her words and laughter stung just as much as the blows. They burned me just as much as the hot pavement on my face. She would get no mercy from me. I reached down and grabbed a handful of her thick, greasy, nappy hair and pulled her up roughly by it. She swung at me. I easily dodged it and punched her hard in her stomach. She looked at me in pain and shock. It registered in her mind, for the first time, that I did not come here for her. I hit her in the stomach again. She started to scream in pain. "Not my baby, please," she begged. I rammed her black head into the tiles on the bathroom wall. She gasped in pain and fell hard to the floor. I kicked her in her stomach as hard as I could, and as many times as I could, before I lost my breath. For some reason, I didn't feel good doing this to her. I felt horrible, but I couldn't stop now. This was not just about me. This was for all the biracial girls who were beaten and bullied by black girls for no other reason than being half white. I kicked her a few more times and pulled out a pair of scissors from my backpack. The look of sheer terror on the girl's face was startling. She probably thought I was going to kill her with it. She is getting a glimpse of the helplessness I felt when they did what they did to me. I felt like I was going to die as well. Maybe they should have killed me. My rage would not be sated. I knelt beside her and saw blood soaking through her pants. I was not sure if I killed her bastard black baby, but I know I damaged her. She shook on the ground and looked pale. I grabbed a handful of her thick, nappy hair and cut as much of it as I could off. I was careful to leave huge bald patches in her hair. You did this. Remember that as you bury your bastard child, I said. I was surprised by the anger and hate in my voice. I stood and put the beanie back on my head. I was going to kick her again in her stomach. She looked up at me pleadingly. Please, I'm sorry. Please, no more, the black girl begged. I stared at her for a long moment, then crawled out the bathroom window and ran as fast as I could back home. I didn't go to any of my classes, and I was careful not to interact with anyone. As far as the school was concerned, I had ditched all day. There was so much violence and sex going on at the school that someone screaming in the bathroom would not cause any alarm. The school was just as ghetto as the people it claimed to educate. The teachers were born and raised in the same neighborhoods as the rest of us. My heart raced as I heard sirens. Sirens in the hood were a normal thing. It was part of the everyday routine in the hood. It would be strange if we went a day with no sirens, but this time it was different. I knew I had done something. I wondered if that pregnant black bitch had been discovered laying there bloody on the bathroom floor. Her hair was cut in various places. Had I killed her? She looked pale and sickly when I left her. The blood on her pants soaked through and was a deep red. I didn't want to kill her. I just wanted to take her baby from her, to make her feel as empty and helpless as she had made me feel. I fumbled to unlock my front door. I stripped and threw my clothes in the washing machine and hurried to shower. My body shook for some reason. Adrenaline was pulsing through me as I remembered kicking her in her stomach. I sighed and sat in the shower. I closed my eyes and let the hot water just hit me. I paced around my room. I couldn't believe what I had just done. I was angry like I have never been before. I felt like years of being bullied by the black girls finally erupted. The truly alarming thing was I felt good about it. I felt like a hero who made the villain finally pay. I forced accountability on a community that always seemed to avoid it. I felt exhilarated. I didn't care if that girl's child lived or died. I knew she would always remember me, just like I would always remember what she and her friends have done to me. Their abuse and ugly black faces as they attacked me were seared into my mind. Even now, my blood boiled as I thought of them cutting my hair off. I pulled off my beanie and felt the bald spots on my head. They would all feel my wrath. I would get even with all of them on behalf of every biracial girl out there. They deserved what was coming to them. I was a superhero, and they were the villain. I knew where the main girl and her mom lived. My mind flashed to that older black woman cutting my hair with her dull knife. The look of triumph on her face made my chest heave. I felt anxious thinking about it. They acted like cutting my long curly hair was vindication for the slight of me being half white and them a dark nappy black. I felt a hate in my gut for black people, for black boys and men that made me feel like a piece of meat every time they saw me, how they aggressively touched and grabbed me. I feared it was only a matter of time before one of them raped me. Ghetto black men were just as much of a plague on humanity as ghetto black girls. I felt they all needed to be exterminated. I hated them for hating me and not allowing me to live my life with my father in peace. My mother was not perfect. She was an ex-hoe when my father met her. She was turned out by a black man who got her addicted to drugs and put her on a street corner. I don't know what my father saw in a street hoe, but he loved her. Maybe he too was not exempt from the colorism that plagued the black community. Or maybe he didn't want to have a kid that was doomed to be just another hood rat. Another idiot who blamed the wreckage of their lives on white men instead of their own actions or failure to act. I sighed deeply, thanking God that I was half white. Even though my mother was a crack-addicted hoe, the white blood I got from her canceled out a lot of the nonsense from the black side. I changed into some baggy sweatpants and a hoodie. I walked to my garage. My father had a gas can there. He always kept it full just in case. My father was somewhat of a prepper. He kept generators and cans of gas ready in case the power went out. He often forgot that we lived in the hood around some rabid animals. If the power went out and our house was the one spot with power, the roaches that called themselves humans would flock here and try to rob us. I loved my father. He is the greatest man I have ever known, but he was often naive about the destructive nature of his own people. Maybe his blackness blocked him from seeing how dangerous black people were. I found a smaller gas can that was full. My father kept matches in a drawer next to the gas cans. He liked to know exactly where everything was at in case of emergency. He was tedious like that. He prided himself on always being prepared. And part of being prepared was being able to easily access things he needed. He was extremely annoying about it, but the upside was I always knew where everything was. The house of the older black woman and her daughter was a few miles away from my house. They lived in a duplex in the middle of the worst part of the hood. All the houses around them were condemned and boarded up. Parts of their house were boarded up as well. It seemed like it would not be long until the city condemned their home as well, if they have not already. I waited until the sun went down and walked to their ruined shack of a duplex. It took me nearly 2 hours to walk there. My face was covered by the hoodie, and I walked with my head down. I didn't want anyone to recognize me. I was several shades lighter than everyone who lived here. It seemed like the darker skinned you were, the deeper in poverty you lived. It's crazy that there was a class system here in the hood. My father was poor, but considered hood rich, whatever the hell that meant. Because he was not as poor as most of the people who dwelt there, he was considered a coon. They claimed he was trying to act white. It's sad how having an education and working hard makes you a traitor to your race if you're black. I recognized the old barely working vehicle parked in front of their duplex. The townhome attached to their home was boarded up and condemned, so burning down their house would hurt nobody else but them. But even if it did displace another black family, so what? These people were horrible monsters and deserved whatever they got. I stood in front of the house. The gas can was in my backpack, and the matches were in my pocket. My heart raced, but I was not scared. I felt like I was getting justice. You can't just beat, bully, and oppress someone for their skin tone and not expect payback. But these arrogant black bastards thought they got away with what they did to me. I heard screaming and cussing in their house. I figured their home would be as dysfunctional as they were. "Fuck you, Marcus. You're always talking to that bitch," a woman screamed. I heard something break. I figured she had thrown something at him. "Why do you always have to do this in front of the kids?" Marcus responded. This was the perfect distraction for me to set their dump of a life on fire. I crept up beside their house. The screaming and fighting got louder. "That's why you've been taking care of DeMondre's kids, nigga," the woman shouted. There was an eerie silence that came over the house. It seemed that all knew she had stepped over a line she could not undo. I poured gasoline on the side of their house. The house was so old and rotted, it would go up like a tinderbox even without the gasoline. "What?" the man screamed. I heard a sharp, meaty slap, and the woman screamed in pain. No wonder why black kids were so fucked up. This was the reality for most of them. Their mother was a hoe, sleeping with any black man that could help her pay a bill. The men didn't know if the kids they loved and were raising were even theirs. I was glad my father did not marry a black woman. I mean, my mom was no saint, but she had me and gave me to my father, knowing she could do nothing for me. Even at my mother's worst, she did what she knew was best for me. That was not being in my life at all and letting my father raise me. I poured gas all around the house and on their front porch. My heart was beating so fast I felt sick. I felt like I would throw up. "You got this, Monica," I whispered. I lit the first match and threw it on the front porch. I waited a moment to see if it lit. I smiled as the flames sprang to life on the front porch and caught fire. I ran to the side of the house and lit the gas on all sides. Then ran back to the middle of the street. I put my gas can back into my backpack and watched as the flames danced around the house. The flames seemed eager to consume the old, rotted wood. I heard screams from inside the house. I wanted them all to burn. They deserved no less for what they did to me. I put my hand under my hoodie and felt the bald spots on my head. "The porch is on fire! Get the kids!" Marcus shouted. It was more than just the porch, but I figured he would find that out soon enough. I could hear the woman sobbing as she realized her entire shitty life would burn. One of the girls was staring at me from the upstairs window. The smoke was thick. She coughed. I locked eyes with her and smiled. She was one of those black bitches that jumped me and held me down so their vile mother could cut my hair. I wanted to say something. I wanted to let them know that it was me that ruined their life. I held my tongue. I knew if I said something, my father would suffer. They would shoot up my house. "Hey, you!" a voice shouted. I turned to see that older black woman who had cut my hair. She was behind the house motioning me to her. "Help me, please! I can't carry all of my babies!" The black woman pleaded. I nodded and ran over to her. She didn't know who I was and clearly didn't think I set her house on fire. She was breathing hard and sobbing. "Please help me! My babies are still in there!" The woman pleaded. Her pain and misery fed my rage. The fire of hate in me burned hotter than the fire that consumed her house. I pulled my hoodie off my head and locked eyes with the woman. She stared at me a moment. It took her a minute to register who I was. She saw the bald spots on my head and gasped. Before she could react, I pushed her as hard as I could into the flames that were quickly consuming the house. She screamed as she fell hard on her back in the fire. I covered my head again with my hoodie and watched as she screamed and stood. She threw herself on the grass and rolled around. "You will never hurt a biracial girl again," I shouted. The smell of her burning flesh gagged me. Her screams of pain were deafening. Her kids watched and cried as their mother frantically tried to put out the flames that burned her out. I ran. I didn't know if she would live or die, but I knew she would never be the same. Not only was she black, she was now burnt, and her kids were homeless. Hopefully, they would be motherless as well. I ran as hard as I could. My body was fueled by fear and adrenaline. I covered the several miles back to my father's house in half the time. As soon as I got home, I took my clothes off and threw them in the wash. I took a long shower. The screams of pain in that black woman's voice would not stop ringing in my ears. I started to cry. I don't know why I was crying. Maybe it was the last shred of innocence in me dying. Maybe it was my soul weeping at the monster I had become. "Baby girl, are you home?" my father shouted. I sighed as I heard his voice. I had to pull myself together. My father was my rock. He was my anchor on this violent sea I had found myself on. I took a deep, shuddering breath. "I'm in the shower, Daddy," I replied. I heard my father walk to the bathroom door. "Sorry I'm late, baby. I got us a late dinner, and I got some great news," my father said. He seemed happy. This was rare for my father. He worked hard and was always tired. But tonight, his voice seemed to have a pep in it that I have not heard before. I hurried up and finished showering. I threw on my pajamas and came to the kitchen. I had my towel wrapped around my head to hide the bald spots. My father smiled broadly and hugged me. "Come sit down and eat," my father said. He pulled out the chair for me. He always told me that if a man can't open a door for you or pull out your chair, he is not worthy of my time. He went out of his way to show me how I should be treated. I adored my father. He took such joy in raising me. I could tell my father was excited. "So, I'm selling the house. I got a job that pays much more, and we're moving next week out of this stinking hood," my father said. Tears welled up in his eyes. This meant a lot to him. He owned this house, but he hated the hood just as much as I did. All he wanted to do was give me a better life. I knew if I got caught with the things I have done, it would break his heart. He would have lost his only daughter to the hood and the system he hated so much and worked so hard to escape from. I smiled. I was relieved. If I could lay low, I could escape all of this. I could wake up from this nightmare and restart out of the hell that was the hood. "I love you, Daddy," was all I could manage to say. I lived the next week of my life afraid. My last days of school was like a constant panic attack. I swore at any moment the police would barge in and arrest me, but it never came. I don't know what happened to that black girl and her baby. I honestly don't care. I didn't see her again after what I did to her. She didn't return to school. I knew she would come back eventually. This was the hood, and school was the main social point for most people. Even the adults treated the school as more of a hookup club than a place of learning. People talk about her in whispers. It was always some horrible rumor, like her baby's father came back because she put him on child support and killed the baby. This would have been a normal occurrence in the hood. People told the story like they were there, like they saw this lie happen. Others said she was robbed. Everyone had a different story, but none of those stories pointed to me. None mentioned a biracial girl crept into the bathroom and beat her within an inch of her life for cutting out huge swaths of the biracial girl's hair. I guess I had gotten away with it. The house I burned down was a different story. Some unintended good came out of my rage. That house caught several blocks on fire. Most of the homes that burned down were condemned and boarded up, but a few families were displaced. The city started a new housing initiative to rebuild that area. More black families would be housed there. More homes would be built for them. The hood was like a third world country inside of America. It was a tragic refugee camp of freed slaves that America didn't know what to do with. I honestly believe most of black America didn't know how to be civilized. Life for them was all about sex and outshining other poor people that looked like them. The woman I pushed into the fire died. Her kids were taken into the system. That included 2 of the hateful black bitches that attacked me. The stories I heard about the group homes were nightmarish. I prayed those black girls were getting raped every night by some perverted group home staff. I had no sympathy for them. The rage in me had not subsided. I would have to find a way to let what happened to me go. I paid the people who violated me back tenfold. But still, the rage boiled inside of me like hot lava, waiting to erupt. I could not take this rage with me into this new life my father was making for us. I didn't want to put anything he was building for me in jeopardy. He was selling the house that would be my inheritance. But I honestly did not care. I didn't want to inherit the poverty and ghetto that came along with that house. Surprisingly, my father's house sold quickly. He got slightly more than what he asked for. Intact houses that were well maintained were a rarity in the hood. When people saw my father's house was for sale, those that could jumped at the opportunity. It's funny, these black degenerates that have always looked down on my father for his education and accolades. Those who called him a coon or claiming he was trying to act white had no issues trying to move into the place he acquired with his education. It just proved that they hated anyone and anything that was not as ghetto and ignorant as them. The day we left the hood was one of the best days of my life. We loaded a U-Haul filled with our things and drove away. I felt like I was leaving a dilapidated and impoverished African village. Black kids and adults waved at us as we drove past. The look of envy and hate on their faces for us escaping something they could only dream of leaving was as amusing as it was depressing. My life was starting new. I had burned a woman to death, set several blocks on fire, and beat the crap out of a pregnant girl. The best part was I had gotten away with it. I didn't turn back as we crossed the bridge out of the hood. I didn't have any goodbyes in my heart to give. The hood was a nightmare for me that I was happy to escape. My father turned to me and beamed. I have never seen him this happy before. I imagine he was feeling the same things I was feeling. He was happy to escape a plantation that his family was stuck on for many generations. He was the slave that had finally bought freedom for himself and his family. I was proud of my father. This was something deeper to him than it would ever be to me. I'm not sure if it was because I was biracial or because I didn't live the trauma he had. My father was like a lion trapped in the ocean. He felt useless in the hood. Now he had finally found land, and he could roar with pride. We moved to a normal middle-class neighborhood. My father had gotten us a huge house. To think only a short while ago, I was in hell back in the hood. Now I was in heaven. I ran into a peculiar predicament, though. The school was amazing. I was challenged educationally for the first time in my young life. There were many biracials that went to this school. I did not fit in among them. They had never tasted the hood. They have never felt the sting of not being enough. They grew up with both of their parents and the love of both their white and black extended families. I was the ghetto one to them. I talked differently than them, and I was definitely more violent than them. They were afraid of me. I found that here outside the hood, I was not enough for other biracials. The stank and touch of the hood would never leave me. The scars and pain of the hood would forever be etched on me. I found that I hung out with black kids. I made friends with other black girls, and we talked shit about the uppity biracials here. I became one of the black girls in the hood that used to bully me for having a white mom. Now I was bullying other biracials. I didn't care that they were half white, because I was too. It was how snobbish they were. It was how they thought they were better because they had a white parent. I think growing up in the hood made me better than these snobs because I never thought I was better than anyone else. I just wanted to fit in. Here at this school, the biracials were different. Maybe it was a cultural thing forged in poverty and the constant threat of danger and violence that made me feel so out of place here. In the hood, I was the top student in my class. The smartest in the entire school. In this new life, I could barely compete. I was the nigga here, and for some reason that I could not understand, I was okay with that. My father met a beautiful woman from Africa and married her. I was so happy for him. His new wife became the mother I always wanted. I never called her mom, but we had an unspoken bond. She never forced being black on me. She called me mixed race. She would do my hair and would tell me stories of how she grew up in Nigeria. Biracials had their own racial group in most places. They were respected and loved by their families. It seemed that only here in America, the country that boasts to be the most powerful and advanced in the world, yet colorism and racism was still a major problem. White people hated black people, and black people hated biracials. In the hood, biracials were the proverbial whipping boys for black people. We were the closest thing to whiteness that they could ever touch, so they took out all their pain and suffering on us. I would tell my new stepmother some of the things I had suffered at the hands of black people. She would click her tongue in disappointment and say, "You know, back in Nigeria, I would have taken a machete to them. They would not have gotten away with that." I grew to love my stepmother. She understood me. I didn't tell her what I had done to those who had oppressed me, but I felt she would understand if I ever did tell her. Oddly enough, she didn't like black Americans very much. My father was different from the rest that were filled with self-loathing and being the perpetual victim. As the years passed, I went to law school and became a prosecutor in my great state. I made it a point to go after the hood and the disgusting black people that infested it. The more power I had, it seemed like the traumas of my past resurfaced. I didn't care if they were innocent or not. If I got their case and they were from the hood, I made it a mission to lock them up for as long as the judge would allow. I came to understand one important thing about black people. There are black people from the hood, and then there are black people like my father. I went out of my way to be lenient on black people that worked hard and couldn't catch a break. But if you were from the hood, I wanted the book thrown at you. The satisfaction I would get when black women were hauled off to do a lengthy sentence was almost orgasmic. As they cried and begged, I would see those black girls that mocked me, that beat me, and cut my hair. There was no such thing as equality in the justice system. In most cases, you were at the mercy of the prosecutor. I gave biracials the biggest breaks, even the confused ones that were trying too hard to be black. I knew it was only a matter of time until they got tired of the bullying and teasing, until they had enough of not being black enough no matter what they did. I don't ever think I will get over the trauma of what I endured at the hands of black people. Sure, I had power now, and I was exacting my revenge every single day, but it still haunted me. The screams of that woman as I pushed her into the flames echoed in my dreams. I could still smell the stench of her burning flesh. The desperate, pleading look in that pregnant black girl's eyes as I kicked her in the stomach over and over again. It tormented me. Every time I thought about it, I would get angry. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. There was no statute of limitations on murder. This anger has kept me alone and childless. I couldn't stay in a relationship for more than a few months before the man left me. I was too cold, too hardened by what I had endured in the hood. My hate for ghetto black people dripped from me like venom. I didn't want to have a child, and it be subject to the rage that still burned in me. It would not be fair for that poor baby to suffer because I had no love to give it. All I could offer was a cold diet of hate and rage. I knew any child I had would be mixed race. I didn't want them to endure the same hate I had. I was afraid that they would end up like me. I was almost 40 years old and still reeling from the traumas of my childhood. This hate was all I had. When my father passed away, it got worse. Through everything in my life, I always had my father. He would correct my path whenever I went off course. His arms were the only place the rage subsided. My stepmother tried, but she was not my father. She could never reach me like he could. I eventually moved to another state. I tried working for the district attorney's office there, but my rage quickly ended that job. So I opened up my own firm. I started to push for laws that would make biracials their own racial group, and thus give them protections that they currently lacked. In the eyes of the law, biracials were just seen as black, so any hate and oppression we suffered at the hands of the black community was brushed under the rug as black-on-black crime. For the first time in my life, I found peace. Every time I was able to help a biracial girl get justice against black girls that bullied her, the rage would subside. The hood and those ignorant black creatures that infest it have destroyed me.